We're going to go back to our top story, and that's, of course, the ceasefire that has been reached in Nagorno-Karabakh. I'd like to bring in Laurence Broers, Associate Fellow at the Russia and Eurasia Program at Chatham House. Good to have you with us here on France 24. How did this recent flare-up in violence escalate so quickly?
Well, it follows 9 months of a blockade, a civilian blockade of the Armenian population in Nagorno-Karabakh, and I think it represents Azerbaijan's effort to finally stamp out and to resolve this conflict on its own terms, while the wider international environment and geopolitical conditions are favorable. Azerbaijan claims that the Lachin corridor was also being used for the supply of military equipment to Karabakh Armenian militias, and a number of deaths of Azerbaijani servicemen due to landmines, was the immediate trigger. But this is part of a long-term strategy to basically extinguish the sources of separatism, secessionism in Karabakh.
Armenian separatists, are due to hold talks with Azerbaijani officials tomorrow. What will those talks entail exactly?
Well, from what we know, the terms of the ceasefire are the complete dispersal of the remaining Karabakh Armenian military forces, the return of any large-scale military equipment to the Republic of Armenia, and then a discussion about reintegration. This notion has been on the table for some time, but we have no white paper, no blueprint, no plan as to what it actually means. And I think in any scenario, what we will be seeing is an outflow of Karabakh Armenians from the territory. There is simply no trust or conditions under which Karabakh Armenians, I think, would want to live in today's Azerbaijan.
Russia has rejected assertions that it's not done enough to maintain peace, but on one hand, you do have Russian peacekeepers that help broker this agreement. Is Russia distracted because of the war in Ukraine?
Absolutely. Russia sought to impose its hegemony over this conflict in 2020 with the ceasefire, but it largely took itself out of the picture with the Ukraine war and the way that war has gone. That's left the field open for Azerbaijan to challenge Russian hegemony, remembering that Azerbaijan's victory in 2020 was incomplete. It doesn't want to see the continuation of the Russian peacekeepers' mandate beyond 2025. And we have to remember as well that the usefulness of Russia's relationship with Armenia has gone down dramatically, while the relationship with Azerbaijan has become much more important in the light of Russia's connectivity post-Ukraine war. So I think, Russia has really been debilitated, but it also has no real political incentive to step in and try to resolve this conflict.
You mentioned something about the value of the Russian and Armenian relationship going down in significance for Moscow, but also do you see that there's a split also emerging between Russia and Armenia itself, because Armenia has gone further to the west, just as we speak, conducting drills with the United States, sending aid to Ukraine, etc., so openly going against Moscow's wishes?
Yes, that's absolutely right. These are only the most recent symptoms of a much longer-term trend. We have to remember that the whole basis for the relationship between Armenia and Russia in the post-Soviet era has been a kind of loyalty for security transaction. Armenia would be loyal to Russia for as long as Russia provided for Armenian security and for control over Nagorno-Karabakh. That equation, that transaction, has now failed. Russia's failed to provide for Armenia's security, notably in the large-scale cross-border strikes by Azerbaijan in September of last year. And so I think we are seeing a sort of a quiet divestment on the part of Armenia in this relationship with Russia. But it is very challenging because economically and strategically, Russia is still very much embedded in the Armenian economy. So it's simply not possible to see a rapid structural shift away from Russia. And this is the dilemma that Nikol Pashinyan now has to deal with.
Exactly, because he finds himself in this catch-22 situation when on one hand he wants to move closer to the West, but he's sort of tied to Moscow.
That's right. Armenian foreign policy has for many years been structured around this idea of complementarity, the idea that you can have relationships simultaneously with Russia and with the West. But in this, this era that we're living in of Russian-Western confrontation over Ukraine, that has become an increasingly difficult position to hold. So I think there are many challenges ahead for Armenian foreign policy in terms of diversification.
Laurence Broers, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today.
Thank you.